The planet was never meant to exist. It did not orbit naturally, and it did not follow any known stellar pattern. Every layer of its surface had been engineered with purpose, precision, and cruelty. This world was not discovered. It was designed. The galaxy called it a test environment. In truth, it was a weapon. Alien scientists had studied humans for decades, watching them survive disasters that erased other species. Plagues failed to end them. Wars made them stronger. Environments meant to crush life became homes instead. That pattern created fear. Fear demanded an answer. This planet was that answer. Its gravity adjusted in real time to human muscle density, always staying just above tolerable. Its atmosphere reacted chemically to human respiration, releasing toxins only when oxygen levels stabilized. Its terrain shifted subtly under human movement, creating instability where balance was needed most. Every parameter was tuned to one target. Humans. The project files were confident. No human will survive beyond the first cycle. The deployment order was signed without ceremony. The human transport ship entered orbit silently, unaware that the world below was already reacting to their presence. Sensor arrays deep beneath the surface activated, aligning systems that had waited years for this moment. The planet was awake as the landing craft burned through the atmosphere. Storms formed instantly around its path, drawn to human mass, like predators sensing blood. Winds slammed against the hull with focused force. Not random chaos. The descent path narrowed, forcing a harder landing. Alien observers leaned forward. This was working. The craft hit the surface with bone-crushing impact. Shockwaves rippled outward, triggering seismic responses across the region. The ground cracked. Open in geometric patterns. Vents releasing pressure and toxic vapor. Directly beneath the landing zone, the planet struck first. Human systems failed in sequence. Navigation dropped. External sensors blinded themselves, trying to compensate. Internal pressure surged beyond safe thresholds. According to the design, panic should have followed. It didn't. Humans exited the craft with controlled urgency, not fear. They moved slower than training demanded, adjusting instinctively to the shifting gravity. Every step was deliberate. Every breath measured. The planet increased pressure. Human armor creaked under strain. Muscles burned. Blood pressure spiked. Bones protested. One human fell, dragged sideways by gravity that suddenly tilted. Another human grabbed them without hesitation. Formation held. Alien scientists exchanged messages. That response wasn't predicted. The atmosphere reacted next, as humans stabilized. Oxygen flow, airborne compounds, activated, binding to moisture in their lungs. Breathing became painful. Vision blurred. Heart rate spiked dangerously. This phase had ended 34 species. Humans reduced intake. They shortened breaths. Rotated exposure. Shared filtration units. Some removed helmets briefly, testing tolerance. Manually, instead of trusting instruments. The planet recalculated. Beneath the surface, biological constructs shifted position. Massive lifeforms stirred in response to human vibrations. Predators shaped over millennia for this world's conditions aligned toward the landing site they had fed on every failed species before. Alien observers smiled. Then the humans did something unexpected. Instead of retreating inward, they expanded outward. Portable anchors slammed into unstable ground. Temporary structures formed in minutes, reinforced against shifting terrain. Humans placed themselves between shelters and open land, not hiding, but presenting. The first predator erupted from the ground with force. Meant to scatter everything, it didn't. Human weapons fired in short, controlled bursts. Not at the body, at movement joints, sensory clusters, weak points discovered in seconds. The creature collapsed. Alive but immobilized. The planet paused. This was not part of the design. Seismic responses hesitated. Atmospheric pressure fluctuated without committing. The system searched for escalation paths that did not yet exist. Humans adjusted again. They reinforced. They shared supplies. They spoke calmly, voices steady even as exhaustion crept in. Number 1 asked how long they would last. They asked what the planet would try next. Alien observers felt the first crack of doubt. This world had been built to overwhelm humans instantly. Instead, it was being studied, measured, understood. The storms returned harder. Gravity spiked again. The planet tried to crush them. Faster, humans stayed. And for the first time since activation, the world designed to kill humans encountered resistance. It had not been programmed to handle .NOT technology, .NOT weapons, but refusal. The planet did not wait for nightfall to escalate. As soon as humans stabilized their perimeter, the ground beneath them shifted with intent, tilting and sinking in precise patterns that targeted where they stood moments earlier. This was not chaos. It was calculation, adjusting to human movement in real time. Humans noticed the pattern before the planet finished executing it. They spread out slightly, breaking predictable paths, forcing the terrain to over. Sections of ground collapsed where humans no longer were, wasting the planet's energy. Each failed attempt revealed timing gaps the humans began to track. The atmosphere struck next, thickening suddenly into a heavy fog that burned the lungs and blurred vision. Sensors flagged lethal exposure within minutes, exactly as designed. Other species had suffocated at this stage. Unable to adapt quickly enough, humans slowed their breathing. They reduced motion. Shared air supplies. Some held breath longer than training allowed, trusting instinct over instruction. The fog lingered, then thinned, unable to trigger the mass failure it was built to cause. Below the surface, the world released its hunters, multiple. Predators erupted at once, not charging blindly, but flanking from angles meant to split formations. Their bodies were shaped by this world, dense, armored, fast, in short bursts. They had never failed before. Humans adjusted fire discipline instantly. Shots were limited, ammunition conserved, targets prioritized. Humans did not try to kill everything at once. They slowed the predators, injured them, forced retreats, then repositioned. The predators began hesitating. Alien observers stared at their displays. Watching creatures designed to dominate suddenly pause, reassessing an unfamiliar threat. This? Plangia had never encountered resistance that learned this quickly. Gravity spiked again without warning. Human bodies slammed downward as weight doubled, then tripled. Bones strained. Knees buckled. One shelter collapsed under sudden force, strapping 2 humans beneath it. The planet expected panic. Humans lifted the structure anyway. They braced together, distributing the weight, muscles tearing, but holding. The trapped humans were pulled free, injured, but alive. Medical aid was immediate, efficient. Silent, the gravity eased slightly. That response had not been programmed. Night arrived abruptly, dropping temperatures beyond survival thresholds. Frost spread across equipment in seconds, locking joints and cracking exposed surfaces. Power systems flickered, threatened by the cold. Humans huddled closer. They shared heat, reduced exposed surfaces, rotated watch shifts faster, knowing sleep was impossible. They treated exhaustion as another condition to manage, not a failure. The planet increased seismic activity again. Testing whether fatigue would finish the job, it didn't. As tremors rolled through the area, humans shifted positions in advance, predicting the shockwaves by watching ground behavior. Structures bent, but stayed standing. No one was caught off balance. Alien scientists flagged a critical anomaly. Humans were no longer reacting. They were anticipating. The predators returned near dawn. Fewer in number, but more cautious. They circled from a distance, testing reactions, with feints instead of attacks. Their confidence had changed. Humans did not chase them. They watched back. The standoff lasted minutes that felt like hours. Then the predators retreated, disappearing into the ground, leaving silence behind. This had never happened. The planet attempted one. Final escalation for the cycle. Radiation levels spiked in controlled pulses, designed to overload biological repair systems over time. It was a slow-kill method, one no species had survived long enough to understand. Humans logged the exposure. They adjusted rotation schedules, limited cumulative dosage, shielded the most vulnerable. They accepted minor damage. Now, to avoid fatal damage later, the planet recalculated again. When the first cycle ended, the data was undeniable. Humans were still alive, not barely, not accidentally. They had survived an attack sequence specifically engineered to kill them. Alien observers stopped speaking. This world had been designed to overwhelm, adapt, and erase humans within hours. Instead, it was being forced into repeated adjustments, each one revealing more of its logic. Humans stood in the wreckage of failed attacks, breathing hard, injured, exhausted, but present. The planet had struck with everything it had prepared. Humans were still standing, and the world that was designed to kill them began preparing something new. Because it had learnt one terrifying truth. Humans were not following the design. They were breaking it. The realization came suddenly, not from fear, but from pattern. Humans stopped treating the world as an environment and began treating it as a system. The attacks were not random. The timing was not emotional. The timing was not emotional. Every escalation followed a rule, and rules could be tested. That changed everything. Instead of waiting for the planet to strike, humans moved first. Small teams stepped into open terrain, forcing gravity spikes to trigger early. When pressure surged, they retreated calmly, marking the delay between cause and effect. The planet wasted energy trying to crush empty ground. Alien observers frowned. This behavior was not survival instinct. It was experimentation. The atmosphere responded next, thickening in targeted zones where humans gathered. Humans split immediately, thinning their formation, forcing the chemical reaction to weaken. Sensors recorded the exact concentration needed to trigger lung failure. Humans adjusted just below it. The planet hesitated. Predators emerged again, but something was wrong. They did not coordinate as before. Their movements overlapped, colliding instead of flanking. The planet's control signals were interfering with each other, stretched thin by too many active threats. Humans noticed. They lured the predators across unstable terrain, not to trap them, but to force the ground to react twice. The planet tried to compensate. The soil collapsed late. One predator fell, pinned by stone it had trusted. The humans did not finish it. They observed. Alien scientists stared at the feed in disbelief. No species had ever studied the planet while under attack. Humans were mapping its limits in real time. Gravity spiked again, harder than before. Human bodies slammed down, ribs straining, vision narrowing. The pressure was tuned perfectly for human anatomy, precise and merciless. This was the weapon's pride. Humans braced and counted. Not seconds. Heartbeats. When the pressure dropped, they moved immediately, marking the duration, logging recovery time. One human laughed weakly, not from humor, but recognition. The planet had a rhythm. That rhythm became the target. The world shifted its terrain aggressively, creating slopes where flat ground had been, pits where humans gathered. The intent was clear: break balance, cause falls, create injuries. Humans widened their stance. They shortened movement arcs. They changed how they carried weight. Falls decreased instead of increasing. Alien engineers whispered among themselves. The design was supposed to improve with every iteration. Instead, it was being exploited. Light brought the psychological phase. Low-frequency vibrations rolled through the ground, resonating through armor and bone, triggering confusion and fear responses. Hallucinations crept in at the edges of perception. Other species had torn themselves apart at this stage. Humans linked up. They spoke constantly. Names, places, facts, memories. They kept their minds anchored together. When one human faltered, another steadied them. The vibrations weakened. The planet adjusted again. It layered attacks: no gravity during predator movement, toxins during storms, seismic events during exhaustion. It was pushing every system at once, desperate to regain control. Humans simplified. They reduced variables, focused on one response at a time. Instead of countering everything, they let some attacks pass through, accepting damage to protect function. The planet could not understand that choice. Its systems conflicted, prioritizing elimination over efficiency. Control loops lagged. Responses overlapped. Humans began predicting attacks before they happened. Alien observers stopped recording. They were watching something they were not meant to see. The planet triggered a deep structural response, activating systems that had never been used together. Ancient mechanisms beneath the crust awakened, pulling energy from the core itself. This was dangerous, even for the planet. Humans felt the change immediately. The ground hummed. The air vibrated. The pressure built not outward, but inward, as if the world were folding around them. Humans didn't retreat. They advanced toward the source. That decision broke every remaining assumption. The planet had been designed to respond to fear, to retreat, to panic. Humans did none of those things. They walked toward the danger. As they closed in, systems fired out of sequence, unable to align fast enough. Attacks missed. Pressure surged too late. Predators emerged in the wrong places. The design was unraveling. The planet was still lethal, still hostile, but it was no longer perfect. Humans had found its flaw. Not a weakness in power, a weakness in logic. And once humans understood how the planet thought, the outcome stopped being a question of survival. It became a question of control. The galaxy realized the failure before the planet did. Deep inside secure observation chambers, alien engineers watched the data streams twist into shapes they had never modeled. Response curves overlapped. Prediction windows collapsed. The system that had been built to stay one step ahead of humans was now reacting a step too late. That was impossible. This world had been designed with adaptive intelligence. layered control systems, and failsafes meant to override uncertainty. It was supposed to learn faster than any living mind. Yet the humans below were moving with confidence, not caution. The weapon was hesitating. Council members gathered in silence, staring at projections of the planet's surface. Humans advanced into zones once marked instant fatal, navigating with precision instead of fear. Each movement forced the world to expose another rule, another limit. One counselor spoke quietly. They are inside the design now. The planet escalated again, not with subtlety, but with force. Gravity surged beyond previous limits, crushing the ground flat and collapsing structures in a violent pulse meant to end resistance at once. Shockwaves rippled outward, erasing human markers and breaking terrain open. Human bodies hit the ground hard. Bones cracked. Armor split. Breathing became agony. Alien observers waited for the signal that always followed. It never came. Humans rose slowly. They moved differently now, not fighting the gravity, but aligning with it, distributing weight across reinforced limbs and shared supports. Injured humans were repositioned instantly, pressure redistributed through teamwork instead of technology. The planet recalculated. That recalculation took too long. Atmospheric systems activated simultaneously, flooding the region with compounds meant to destabilize human biology over minutes, not seconds. This was a kill sequence designed to finish what gravity could not. Humans sealed external exposure and slowed everything. They reduced movement, reduced oxygen intake, reduced communication to essential signals only. Their bodies endured the toxins just long enough for the reaction to weaken itself. The planet had optimized for panic. Humans responded with restraint. Predators surged again, forced forward by the system, driven into attacks they no longer understood. They collided with terrain that shifted too late, attacked from angles that no longer worked, and withdrew in confusion when resistance did not break. For the first time, the dominant life forms of the world fled. Alien biologists went silent. The councils argued openly now. "This is beyond testing," one voice said. "End it," another replied, slower. "If we shut it down now, we confirm what they've become." That truth spread through the chamber. Humans were no longer subjects. They were a variable the galaxy could not control. The planet activated its deepest protocol. Ancient systems buried beneath the crust came online, drawing power directly from the core. The ground split in massive fractures, releasing pressure and radiation meant to erase all life within range. This was not a response. It was a purge. Humans felt the change instantly. The air vibrated with raw energy. The ground screamed beneath their feet. Every survival instinct demanded retreat. They moved forward. Alien observers stared as humans advanced toward the epicenter, navigating collapsing terrain with calm urgency. They adjusted movement in real time, sacrificing speed for stability, choosing progress over safety. The planet attempted to seal them out. It failed. Its control loops lagged under the strain of simultaneous threats. Systems designed to respond sequentially were firing at once, interfering with each other. Attacks overlapped and cancelled, leaving gaps no model had predicted. Humans passed through those gaps. The councils issued emergency override commands, trying to shut down sections of the planet remotely. The system resisted, prioritizing internal logic over external authority. The weapon was protecting itself. That was the final confirmation. "This is no longer under our control," someone whispered. Below, humans reached the zone where the planet's responses originated. The ground pulsed unnaturally, energy flowing through structures that were not geological, but engineered. Humans recognized it. This world was not just hostile. It was afraid. They did not attack the core. They observed it. They mapped the response delays, the feedback loops, the points where escalation created instability instead of strength. They understood what the designers never had. A system built only to destroy cannot adapt when destruction stops working. The planet continued to rage, but its attacks lost precision. Gravity spikes misfired. Storms formed in empty regions. Predators refused to re-engage. The weapon was unraveling. The galaxy watched as its ultimate answer to humanity began to fail. Not because it lacked power, but because it lacked imagination. Humans had not overpowered the planet. They had outhawed it. And now the creators faced a question they could not avoid. If the weapon failed, what had they created instead? The planet reached its limit before the humans did. Systems buried deep beneath the crust ran at maximum output, pulling energy faster than they were meant to sustain. Feedback loops overlapped, corrections arrived late, and precision gave way to force. The world was no longer adapting, it was reacting. That was the first sign of failure. Humans felt the shift immediately. Attacks lost their timing. Gravity surged without rhythm, sometimes too early, sometimes too late. Storms formed in places where no humans stood, wasting energy on empty ground. Humans adjusted their movement with growing confidence. They stopped treating the planet as a threat and started treating it as unstable. Alien engineers watched in horror as their own data betrayed them. The weapon world was exceeding safe operational limits, yet it could not disengage. Its core logic demanded elimination, even when elimination was no longer efficient. The design had no option for restraint. The planet triggered its final protocol. Every hostile system activated at once. Gravity crushed downward. Atmospheric toxins flooded the air. Radiation pulses rolled across the surface. Terrain collapsed and rose in violent waves meant to leave nothing standing. This was extinction, compressed into a single moment. Humans were caught in the center of it. Armor shattered. Structures failed. Several humans were thrown violently across the ground, bodies slamming into stone with crushing force. Pain surged through muscles and bone. Alien observers marked the moment. No species had ever survived this phase. Humans regrouped. They pulled the injured into stable zones they had already mapped. They anchored themselves against shifting terrain. They sealed off exposure paths and accepted damage where protection was impossible. They did not try to stop the attack. They endured it. The planet pushed harder. Energy levels spiked beyond redline thresholds. The ground fractured deeper than ever before, exposing engineered structures beneath layers of rock. Artificial conduits glowed with power they were never meant to show. The world was tearing itself open. Humans saw the truth. This planet was not infinite. It had limits. Instead of retreating, human teams advanced toward the exposed sections, moving carefully through collapsing ground. They avoided direct interference, knowing disruption would only accelerate destruction. Their goal was understanding, not control. The planet tried to isolate them. Sections of terrain sealed off abruptly, cutting paths and collapsing routes. Humans redirected instantly, using alternate paths they had marked earlier. What was meant to trap them became a maze they already knew. Alien councils went silent. The weapon had been designed to escalate until the enemy broke. Humans had designed themselves to last until escalation broke instead. The final surge came without warning. A deep resonance rolled through the planet as its core systems attempted one last correction. Gravity inverted briefly. The atmosphere ignited in chemical reaction. Radiation spiked in every direction. Radiation spiked in every direction. Then something stopped. The systems conflicted. Too many commands. Too many priorities. Too much energy moving through channels never designed to handle it together. Control signals overlapped and cancelled. The planet stuttered. For the first time since activation, the attacks stopped mid-cycle. Storms collapsed into silence. Gravity stabilized. Radiation levels dropped sharply, not by choice, but by failure. Humans stood still. They did not celebrate. They watched. Beneath their feet, the ground glowed faintly, pulsing unevenly, like a wounded heart struggling to maintain rhythm. The weapon world had exhausted itself. Alien engineers confirmed what they feared most. The design had failed. Not temporarily. Fundamentally, the planet could no longer distinguish between threat and response. Its adaptive systems had pushed beyond coherence. Every attempt to correct would only deepen the instability. The councils understood the implication instantly. This world could no longer be controlled. And the humans were still alive. Humans gathered near the exposed structures, observing the damaged core through layers of fractured ground. They spoke quietly, not in fear, but in assessment. They understood what the designers never had. A system built only to destroy cannot recover once destruction stops working. The planet was still dangerous, still hostile. But it was no longer dominant. It had failed to do the one thing it was created for. And as humans stood on the surface of a weapon that could no longer kill them, the galaxy faced the truth it could not erase. This planet was not the end of humanity. It was the end of the design meant to stop them. The galaxy expected silence when the planet finally broke. Instead, it watched humans walk away. The weapon world still rumbled beneath their feet, its systems unstable but no longer aggressive. Storms formed and faded without direction. Gravity held steady instead of striking. Predators stayed buried, no longer responding to commands that no longer made sense. The planet had stopped hunting. Alien councils gathered in emergency session, reviewing the final data with disbelief. Every simulation predicted extinction. Every escalation protocol had been triggered. Every advantage had been applied. Humans were still alive. Not hidden. Not rescued. Standing. Observers focused on the human activity below. They were not repairing the planet. They were not attempting to claim it. They were documenting it, recording failures, marking unstable zones, and preparing to leave. This was not conquest. It was evaluation. The realization spread quietly through the galaxy. Humans had never come to dominate the planet. They had come to understand it. Alien analysts compared human behavior to every extinct species that had faced the weapon world before. Those species had fought the planet as if it were a monster. They had panicked, fled, or exhausted themselves resisting overwhelming force. Humans had treated it like a problem. That difference changed everything. The final report was released under restricted classification. The wording was careful, restrained, and afraid. Planetary weapon design, failure. The reason followed. Human adaptive behavior exceeded system tolerance. That sentence ended several careers. Some councils argued that humans should never have been sent there. Others argued the weapon should have been shut down sooner. A few whispered the truth no one wanted to say aloud. The planet did exactly what it was designed to do. Humans were the flaw. The galaxy watched as humans boarded their transport ships, injured but intact, exhausted but unbroken. No celebration followed. No declaration of victory. No claim over the world that had tried to kill them. They left it behind. That decision confused alien observers more than survival ever had. The planet was declared abandoned shortly after. Its systems were deemed too unstable to reset, too dangerous to repurpose. too unpredictable to risk against any species again. It was sealed off. Labeled, avoided. Humans returned to galactic space carrying data no one else could have collected. They did not share it freely. They did not boast about it. They stored it carefully, treating the experience like training rather than triumph. The galaxy noticed something else. Human expansion slowed after that mission. Not from fear, from confidence. They no longer rushed into unknown worlds. They evaluated them calmly, knowing what they could endure. Knowing what limits meant. Knowing when to push and when to wait. The weapon world faded into history. But the lesson did not. Alien species revised their doctrines quietly. Death world classifications were updated. Human threat assessments were rewritten. Some alliances dissolved. Others formed with caution instead of confidence. The galaxy learned that humans did not survive because they were strongless. They survived because they refused to break. Pressure did not destroy them. It shaped them. The final human report ended with a line that unsettled every council that read it. The environment functioned within expected parameters. That was all. No fear, no anger, no warning. Just confirmation. The planet had been designed to kill humans. It failed. Not because it lacked power, but because humans were not designed to be ended by systems, plans, or weapons built on certainty. They were designed to adapt. And the galaxy would never forget what happened when certainty met humanity.